Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sacred Conversations on Guys Night. Of course, Will McEwen always here and feeling good tonight. And got the usual suspects tonight. Ray, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us back.
And of course, Sean.
Thanks for again.
Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. Camera wasn't switching. All right, we're back. Ray, say hello.
Hey guys, how we doing out there in YouTube land?
All right, so we had a guest lined up for tonight, but he decided not to show or couldn't show or whatever the situation might be. We'll try and do better. So I apologize to everybody listening that we couldn't wrap that up. But we had an interesting conversation before we started the show tonight, talking about regret. And while you guys were talking about that, I started looking up some things, not only regarding regret, but we've talked a lot on the show about sobriety, staying sober. That has a lot to do with your guys' stories. And somebody close to my wife recently fell off the wagon. So I looked up, what are some of the factors and how that happens. And a big portion of that is societal, right? Like the way you're looked upon. I think if you say that you quit drinking, right, the people that you usually hang out with, and now you're around them and you're saying, I quit drinking and just fucking up my life, and they don't understand it. Another portion of that is being a man, we're supposed to be stronger. We're supposed to be able to overcome addiction. We're supposed to be able to overcome struggles. We're supposed to fight through that. It's kind of the reputation that men have, as being able to get through these things on their own. So that whole first step of asking and reaching out for help, or, even being sober for multiple years, it's not like that the struggles just go away. It's not like the things, the demons that you're fighting against just stop fighting you. So, that opportunity to still ask for help might still come about. But now you're like, well, I've been sober for 2 years. So now maybe you're even more hard-headed as far as asking for that help and reaching out to somebody. So I'd like to kind of hit on those couple things, to start off the bat. So I know you had something listed about regret, but let me ask you guys personally, we've talked before about, what you changed when you became sober, but we didn't talk about like 2-3 years down the road. I know, Sean, for you, it's been 4 years sober, I think, correct?
About 4.5, a little over.
And then Ray, you said it's been 16 years. So I'd like to talk about, did you guys have instances, scenarios that you remember clear as day, even, of where that struggle hit hard? Like you were having a day that it was a challenge to stay sober, or you were in a scenario where you felt embarrassed to be sober, or anything along that come up, along your journeys?
I would say probably for like the first 3 or 4 years of my sobriety was difficult, and there was a lot of shame there. That being said, it was, the early stages, like the first year, I don't even really remember. Everything was such a fog. You go from drinking and using the way I did, I convulsed on the floor for like 10, 11 days at my house, just in a puddle of my own everything. And, it was a horrible experience. But as you're coming out of that and in that funk, every day there was something, a trigger, a thought. It's kind of like, for those of you that smoke, that, you have the physical aspect, you kick the body part of it, the craving or the addiction to the actual element, but then you have the physical aspect. That's where a lot of people overeat. They gain weight after they smoke. One, your metabolism's slowing down. And then two, again, it's a physical thing. When you first wake up, you light that cigarette. Mine was, my hand hits the steering wheel, like really anything I did, because I did everything I was drinking. Again, I was pulled over and I'm sitting there with the McDonald's cup that was half Coca-Cola and half Jack Daniels, as the cop's standing there at the window writing my ticket. I'm sucking on the straw and drinking Jack and Coke, like while we're having this conversation. Like I did nothing without drinking. And it was just brand new for everything for me.
Real quick too, just while we're talking about this, if you're listening, please make sure you like and share and hit the subscribe button. We appreciate the attention that we are getting, and we hope to continue growing that so we can help more people. Also, you'll see across the bottom of the screen the link to the Guys Night Story Time. We've got our website set up to where you can accept either your story times about having a good time, guys' nights out, whether it's, bachelor party stories, dating stories, job stories, whatever it is. But we've also got one for sacred conversation. So if you're sitting there and you're struggling with something and you want to share that story, but you want to do it anonymously, please do so on the guysnight.com, and you'll see the link there at the bottom. Story time. Guys Night, it's across the top of the website as well. So that being said, Sean, it looked like you had something that you wanted to add to that. Do you recall a scenario?
Thank God I wasn't as far down the rabbit hole as you were, to put it nicely, I guess.
Amen, brother.
I'm like 4 years and like maybe 7 months, somewhere like that. May 25th, 2020 is my sobriety date. I can honestly say, you said the first year was full of hell. I've had, and I pray that it continues to have a really great recovery. Occasionally might have had some arguments that I guess a thought crossed my mind that, but I knew, hey, this is when I would go drink. And I called my counselor. I called my sponsor. And I had one other, Ellis was another accountability partner. I had like 3 people that I could rely on. If I couldn't get a hold of you, then I'm going to call him. And I had a laundry list I still do. I probably have 200-300 phone numbers in my phone now that have, especially if it's someone new, I'll have their name and I'll put AA. So I could search it real quick.
Sure.
I mean,
Right.
I remember what it was like when I was running and gunning, however they like to say, and I didn't want that back. I got scared a few times where I really didn't think I was going to go drink, but I was very fearful that, I wanted to not control. Yeah, I guess I wanted to control it. I wanted to get help right away. Whereas, 2, 3 years now, 4 years of sobriety, I get frustrated. I've learned these tools that when I went to recovery, and I learn daily. I go to meetings and other events and going to prison and listen to other stories. That fog is still getting clearer and clearer in my head, and I've been able to retain a lot of information. And whatever the situation may be now, like today, I had a frustrating couple phone calls for about a half an hour that really boiled me, and I was able to calm down, pause, make the phone calls I needed to make, not overreact, play the tape in my head, and know that ultimately, I know God is in control. And whether it be, I truly feel like the devil throws things in my way to interrupt my peace and serenity. I tore my calf muscle slightly yesterday getting off a ladder. I was hobbling bad yesterday, and I'm getting ready to leave Friday morning at 6 a.m. to go to Nicaragua. We go to the one farm. It's in the jungle. We're going up and down hills, and I'm like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And, it just happened. And I can go through other things in the last few years that were really got under my skin right away. And like I said, I truly feel it's the devil just throwing things in my way to see how strong I am spiritually, and just I can overcome, just either making phone calls or praying to God and stay calm and work my way through it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, you mentioned like working through, and I'm thinking as you're discussing these things, and so I quit smoking so many times, and usually what I do is I make it 3 or 4 days and I'm fine, and then I'm like, oh, I can have one.
An award.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, it goes back to what you talked about, like what is that smoking? It's just a vice, right? It's a vice, but it's also something that you enjoy doing, which I assume when you first start drinking, especially,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you enjoy doing it. It's just something fun, you're whatever, until it becomes, you know, out of control.
Right.
And, you know, my wife, she goes, could you imagine trying to quit something like heroin? Like, fuck no. Like the pull on you would be so incredible. I was like, but at the same point in time, you know, alcohol, these things are they all have that pull, and it's easy for me as an outsider at 6:41 p.m. apparently. It's easy for me as an outsider to say, you know, like, I'll just do it. Well, then I look at myself, right? Take that log out of my eye. And then it's, well, shit, well, why don't you just quit smoking? Or, you know, somebody's probably saying it's the first of the year. It's, what are we, January 14th? Probably 50% of the people that said they're going to work out and get healthier this year have already quit. And it's as simple as saying, like, dude, what's your problem, man? Like, it's simple. It's easy. Well, no, it's not. They're addicted to eating food, or they're addicted to sleeping in, or addiction is just something that's tough to conquer in general, regardless of which addiction you're fighting, you know, addiction to masturbating, addiction to, you know, staying up late at night. I mean, you can really, anything that feeds, addiction to social media, you know, addiction to addiction to phones, addiction to, like, there's so many things. And what I start doing for myself is I start looking, I was like, okay, this year I want to conquer some things. I want to do some things. And, you know, I use my habit tracking app. I think that's the best thing in the world. But I'll look at it and be like, oh, I failed at these two. That's okay. I'll do better tomorrow. And I just keep telling myself that. And I'd imagine that quitting drinking is the same thing. Like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll just have one. It's been like 2 or 3 years. I'm good. I'm over it now. Right. Like, past that
Right.
point.
That's a lot of what happens is, you know, well, I haven't drank for 90 days, you know, surely I deserve a beer now. And then, you know, or you start rationalizing it in your mind. Like, well, you know, it's those people that I was drinking with. So if I change my crowd and I go to this bar or I hang out with these people, I'll be fine. You know, and you're just fooling yourself. And then it's that Budweiser. You know, I gotta go to Michelob, or I need to drink wine. I need to be sophisticated. You know, again, you're just rationalizing it so you can get that alcohol.
Do you drink your wine with your pinky up?
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, I could talk myself into anything. Yeah. And even still now, you know, if it's, I don't know, something for work, like some kind of tool that might make my day go better, but do I really need it? You know, no, but I'm like, well, I can talk myself into it. I'm like, let's go to work, you know, whatever the situation
Easily.
might be.
Yeah.
A gun.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have one of them.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, I only got 2 arms. I know, but
yeah,
put it down and pick another one though.
I know. It's like I have a buddy, he's got like huge gun collection. And I'm like, dude, do you know how much of a pain in the ass it's going to be to carry 8 different types of ammunition if you do have to use all of those? Like, you know, but it is what it is. It becomes an addiction.
When I, you know, going back to what Ray was talking about, changing crowds and stuff, or it's 90 days. I've been to a lot of meetings, thankfully, that I've met a lot of people, unfortunately, at their expense, that had 10 years and 12 years and went back out because they either changed the crowd or thought, you know, I've made it 10 years, you know, I can do this. And I'll go up and meet them after their lead or something and ask them, like, what happened? Because I don't want to do that. And they got disconnected. They quit going to meetings. They quit talking openly about their problems, asking for help, praying to God. I mean, this is numerous things that is my daily routine now that I just do it second nature. It's not like I'm trying to do this. How it was for me to get up and go drink every day is how it is now, to get up and pray and ask for help when I need it. And I'm proud of who I am now. I'm not afraid to show it.
Sure.
And I think the big thing is that, especially when you have larger chunks of time in your sobriety, that you need to understand that whatever day you pick back up, that you fall off the wagon, you have a slip, whatever you want to call it, you have made that decision and set things that into course, that into play far before that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the scariest things for me, was the people. It seemed like when I first came in and really, like, the fog lifted, I'm really working the program, year 2, year 3, where I'm no longer dealing with all of the damage that I did to myself, that I'm looking at people that are like 10, 12, 14 years, 10 to 14. It seemed like every meeting I went to, no matter where it was, somebody at that meeting slipped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that was so terrifying to me. And I remember like a very vivid day was, and I was 7.5 years sober. And like I said, if you know my story, or I had a lot of church hurt, a God problem, and my sponsor packed up and moved to California. And I'm like, dude, you're leaving me? Like, what? I'm using your higher power because I don't have, like, what? You can't leave.
Right. Yeah. Like,
And I was terrified. I locked myself in the house for like a week, 8 or 9 days, I think it was. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't leave. Like, I just curled up in a ball, like crying and just sobbing, and like terrified that I'm about to lose everything I just worked for and that I just accomplished. And again, something came to me that was like, hey, call his sponsor. Because again, my grand sponsor, that's who gave him all the information to help me. So who better to get, to keep it going or whatever. So I reached out to him, and he was actually the one who put me in contact with God as my higher power. And but it was like, what do I do? What, like terrified. And that's what I do, is I just withdraw in myself and pull away from everybody and everything, because that's what I just shut down. When you burn your life to the ground and you have nobody you can go to, now what? It's self-reliance. Well, the only thing I know how to do, because I'm an idiot, is to go get drunk again. And it was a difficult time, and it was very scary for me. And again, as like, I'm 6,026 days today. It's very scary that this is a crucial time. And now, because that replays in my head, what have I done the last 2 or 3 years? Did I put anything in motion that's going to cause me to lose my sobriety at this point? Because you might as well just nail the coffin shut. Like, there's no coming, but your disease is out there doing push-ups. You don't pick up where you left off. It's as if you never stopped. So a case, a beer, a fifth of Jack, and 25, I can't afford where I would be today.
well, and you guys keep bringing up AA, obviously, and you bring up the church and things like that. And the idea of, not just Sacred Conversations, but Guys Night podcast in general is supporting these groups that, where men can go and have conversations. I just saw something the other day. Somebody that goes to my gym, they have a group that they were going to get together, and they were going to do a reading on a Saturday morning, I think, at one of the local mechanic shops. And, all men were welcome. And it's now
Siri just wants to be on there.
I don't know what Siri's got going on. But I think it's important that, and look, this isn't to say keep women out. That's not the idea of this podcast. We had a conversation about bringing women on the podcast. And it's not that I don't want women to get help. I don't want women to be able to be part of this. And I think 40% of our listeners are women. But I think that there's less and less space available for a group of men to get together, have an open dialogue, have a real conversation where they don't have to worry about that getting out there. where they can, entrust in the men that are on the table, that they can find people that'll give them good advice, not bad advice. And a lot of those places are kind of getting interrupted nowadays. It's frowned upon if a group of men want to get together and do things where they don't want women involved. And there's a lot of reasons for that.
They're
One,
up to no good.
well, and it's funny because my wife will joke about if we have guys' night or if we go out to, I went riding with a bunch of guys over the summer and things like that. And obviously there's, what is it? FOMO, fear of missing out. There's some of that takes place, but I think what they miss out on is there's certain things that you don't say in front of your wife, not because it's going to hurt her feelings or not because it looks frowned upon about her. There's just something about when you're around a bunch of guys where you can just say things that you don't have to worry about offending people. Usually, I mean, there's some men out there that get offended about everything nowadays, but I think that those groups where men feel comfortable, where they can say what they want and get things off their chest, it allows them to have that opportunity. And for those listening, there's obviously opportunities to do so outside of AA, outside of the church as well. But we look for, helping you find those locations and find those spots, find those meetings, whatever they might be. If there's, gentlemen out there that are listening and you guys are currently part of, there's a lot of leadership groups out there where men get together and talk about their successes in business and their trials and tribulation in the daily life of leading other men and women. And I think those are a positive thing. And I think, AA can be one of those things as well. I mean, I'm sure there's some stories that are really embarrassing that maybe somebody shares at a meeting that's a men's meeting, because I know they still do those, correct?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And they don't share that at a co-ed meeting because maybe there's just something about they don't want women to hear them at their weakest moments or something like that.
Yeah, I've witnessed that, like I've listened to the same person do their lead 3 or 4 times, and it's a little bit different when it's a men's meeting versus when it's a mixed meeting. So, I mean, definitely. And again, it's just, I don't think it's anything about offending anybody, and it's still that shame of, I don't want to look this way or have looked that way. And again, I mean, you are so vulnerable and so broken and such a mess to begin with. That's why we become alcoholics and drug addicts. It's nobody goes like the first time they go to drink or, like, man, I can't wait to become an alcoholic and destroy my life and burn it to the ground. Nobody wants to do that.
No, of course not.
Again, it's just little by little. And like, that's what I told the guys at the prison today. I'm like, you guys need to understand that the devil will come in and just whisper little nuggets. Like, he's not going to walk in the room and slam a bag of cocaine and a case of beer and a couple bottles of Jack and like, all right, well, let's do this. Or, it's going to start real small. Like, hey, that meeting yesterday didn't go well. You really prepared for it, man. You deserve a drink tonight. So you have a drink and, you feel better. Now tomorrow, okay, well, Joni called off. So now you got to do her job and your job. Well, not only did they not appreciate your presentation in the meeting, but now you got to do somebody else's work. Well, that's 2 things. Now you deserve 2 drinks, and it just keeps building and building, and you don't even realize it. Now you're a full-blown alcoholic going, how did I get here?
Right. Yeah. It happens so fast, I'm sure.
So, I mean, that's just something to consider. Again, you need to be prepared and cognitive thinking about what's going on and what I'm doing. Is this good for me or is this bad? And, take it from there, really. Like,
yeah. And I think it's important, like, have those people in your corner that will tell you how it is. Like, that's the other aspect of it. Too often we only want to hear good praises, or we want to hear, oh, I'm doing this well, or I'm doing that well. And my wife will kill me for saying this. There's some times where she's made some comments that were probably true, and I heard them, but I didn't hear them, if you know what I'm saying. And then she'll be like, well, how come when so-and-so said something, you changed this?
That's the worst.
And it's like, yeah, about that. But it's not meant to be a negative thing. But obviously, you know, she's my
Right.
wife. She's gonna look at it that way, and many women do. But there's something like, you know, there's like a mutual respect that you might have for another man that fought through something similar or is doing something similar, and you know, maybe that doesn't fall quite as you hear it a little bit louder, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I think that, and you know, it's kind of based on your relationship too, because with your wife is where you're going to be your most open and hopefully to have a good, successful marriage. But it's like, you know, she sees you every day and through struggles, through good times, bad times, whatever. But when your buddy's like, dude, like, really, what's up with, you know, this? It's like, wait a minute. You know, now it's like I'm seeing it on a whole nother level, and it's not anything different than what she said, but it's like, well, you're supposed to say that you're my wife, you know, you just that's just who I am. Just accept it. You'll be all right. But when your buddy says it, it's like, whoa, like, you know, other people see this. Like, I thought this was just what happened at home with her,
Right.
you know, so that can play into it as well.
You have something to add to that, Sean?
No, not really. And not because I don't want to. I'm actually just listening. I'm just relating back to like if my buddy was like, I did have a lot of people tell me, you know, guys out either drinking or whatever, golfing, and I've had people like, you need to take a look at yourself. Even though like my spouse then was telling me or asking me to do that, I still didn't believe him. You know, I get the point of, you know, yeah, like I play golf. I'm in a men's league in golf. You know, we definitely talk the talk. You know, throw in the extra verbiage and giggles and laughs and that, you know, I wouldn't do around that. And it's just like in AA or anything, you generally, you know, it's a man and a man or woman and a woman. Well, there's other levels to that. That's why that's there. But yeah, I understand where you're going as far as like the guys' night. And I agree, you know, there is a difference in the way you talk.
Real quick, we actually got a comment here on YouTube. How do you deal with the things that you've done in the past while drinking? While you were drinking, the things that you did, I usually go months and months without drinking, but I feel sometimes I'm never gaining any ground or that I can't escape my past. If anyone wants to take that.
And for me, when I was kind of feeling that way, you know, thank God, you know, didn't let me slip. But I was putting a timetable on certain things. You know, I had 6 months or I had a year. You know, why hasn't this happened? Or why is my life still not better? Like these promises they say. Maybe that, I don't know if that's what they're asking. You know, I feel the question to me sounded like they were putting a time limit. You know, I've given it so much time. How come my life's not rainbows and whatever else they say?
Rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got some other friends that have some other words, but
I think it's, you know, it's all about your program and you're working through the steps. Are you working through the steps? I know people that have been in AA for 3-4 years and they're still at step 3. You're dragging, you are a dry drunk. You are not, you know, the physical phenomenon, the craving, that's out of your system. Once the acetone gets out of your system, it's all mental now. And if you're not doing something to clear that up, again, the root cause of why we became an alcoholic or an addict or for what, and again, that's not just alcohol or substance, that's overeating, porn, you know, if you've been molested as a child, any hurt, habit, or hang up, whatever your vice is, if you don't deal with that, you're going to continue on and on. And, you know, again, you might abstain from it for a while, but it's eventually, you know, again, Satan's going to be chirping in your ear and he's just going to keep chipping away till you finally cave. you know, and I think people need to understand and give the credit where credit's due for him. Again, when he was banished from heaven, a third of the angels fell with him. He was the most beautiful angel, and it, but for him to get there in God's presence, for a third of them to follow him and believe in him more than God, like that just blows my mind. But it's, you can't get hooked up on or hung up on, you know, what I did, we cannot live in our past. We have to accept it. We have to take accountability for it and then shut the door on it. You know, look at Lot's wife. When she turned back, it wasn't that she looked back at the past. She was living in that moment and stayed there. She became a pillar of salt. So, you know, for me to look back like, man, this is something I did in my past. I got to make sure I don't do this again. That's awesome. Man, I did this. I'm a piece of garbage. I'm no good. I can't believe I hurt my family like that or did that to my wife or to my kids. You start like, you're right down the road and path of stinking thinking, we call it, and where you're going to drill yourself into the ground to where you are going to get so hurt, self-hurt, that you are going to start self-medicating and go right back to that addictive behavior, whatever it is, to, you know, to numb and mask that pain. And again, you have to be real careful and again, just take that accountability, but work through your steps. Tell your sponsor, hey, I'm really hung up on this regret or this part of my past. Like, I cannot let it go. We need to work on this. You need to pray on it to your higher power. You know, you need to talk to more people before and after the meetings. Again, everything between the Serenity Prayer and the Our Father is just coffee and BS. The real meeting happens before and after. Get there early, stay late. Don't be one of those guys that blows in at 7:29 and out the door at 8:30, you know, as you're letting go of the guy next to his hand after you're done praying and you're running for the door. Like that's not, you're not working the program. You're just there. And, you know, I've seen a lot of guys come in because they were court ordered, you know, as part of their probation or part of their sentence that they have to come in and do this. And that's what I was one of them at first, you know, me and my cousin's husband at the time, we were working for a construction company, driving off-road end dumps. And here comes the piss wagon. Like there's no, you know, you got to report to the urgent care. They bring it right on the job. And I called him. I'm like, dude, you know, this is Monday morning. We just partied all weekend. I'm like, what are we going to do? And he's like, give me a minute. We hang up. He calls me back like 2 minutes later. I just told the foreman that, you know, my old lady, your cousin, she's in the hospital. We don't know what's wrong. We got to roll. So we book out of there, you know, and we got to his house, and his answering machine and on my cell phone was a message that if you are not at this dispensary or this dispensary, you see where it goes at this urgent care to do your piss test, you're fired. So we go to, you know, the Wax Museum over there on Pearl Road and buy the buy the Gatorade looking stuff. And, you know, like my stuff is glowing like it's under a black light, like radiator fluid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this can't be good, you know? So we go there and it's just like, but again, you know, you have to work the steps. So they send us, that's where I was going with this. They send us to AA. So we got to do 6 meetings or whatever. And, you know, I'm embarrassed and ashamed to say, like, this is something that I got to live with, but I try not to dwell on it. But it's like, you know, what are you going to do when you leave this meeting? They asked me. I'm going to hit every damn bar between here and my house. And I did, because I wasn't ready. I didn't care. I didn't take it serious. I was showing up because I had to, not because I wanted to.
Sure.
But I've seen some great stories, some great testimonies coming from guys that have been put there because they were, you know, they had no other option, and they were able to find, you know, their sobriety in it. And thank God they did. I unfortunately am a repeat offender, slow learner, and had to go my course.
Well, and I think everybody has their own course that they have to take. There's no cut and dry way to really do anything that you're fighting in your
Right.
battles, you know. And he said, "Thank you, great responses." This was Wes, so I'm assuming that he may know you, Ray.
Yeah, that's one of my sponsors.
Okay.
Good job.
Yeah. But you know, obviously everybody has their own path, everybody has their own direction, and more importantly, not everything is gonna be as easy and cut and dry as, you know, just forgiving your past. You'd like to, but depending on how bad something's been in the past or something that you've done, I think my focus, and once again, this is coming from outside of AA, just being a regular person, is if there's something that I'm so ashamed of in the past, like what can I do to overcome that shame, right? Like what can I do to where I can then look at myself and be like, yeah, I've overcome that. Like I'm a better man now. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this.
See, I think that would be harder because, and not saying that it's a good excuse, but at least I can rely on the fact of, man, I was drunk or high. Like I was, you know, I didn't, that new thing that goes on, you know, drunk me did that to you. You need to take that up with drunk me, because sober me would never do that. So it's harder for, I guess in my case, and I'm not saying for everybody, but mine, it was like, it was easier for me to not take so much shame, I guess, where I definitely should have, probably way more, you know, from what people are telling me I've done. But it's like, I think it would be actually harder for, you know, if I didn't have that to at least fall back on of, well, I was drunk or I was hot, you know. I mean, you eat 30 Vicodin and you know, you tell me how you're going to act.
Well, I agree,
Does that-
but in once I guess I'm looking at it from a different point of view, right? Like not everybody. So to me, when I hear, oh, I was drunk, I was high, I'm like, well, that's an excuse, right? Drunk and high, does that bring out your inner true self? Are you just a bad person? And being drunk or high gave you the courage, the liquid or pill courage in order to do what you really wanted to do without giving a fuck? Because if you were sober, you probably still wanted to do that, but maybe then you're telling yourself like, then your conscience is speaking for you, right? Like, dude, you can't do that. That's fucked up. So what I'm saying is like, he brings up the question, and I understand it that he's, you know, coming from a point of, obviously he's a sponsee, so he's fighting through alcoholism. But I think there's a lot of men out there that have done things in their past that they're not proud of.
Oh, absolutely.
And that whether it's cheating on a spouse, whether it's, you know, not being a good father, not being there for your kids, not being a good employee. So, you know, there's whatever the case might be, getting in trouble with the law. So I think if you write those things down and you hold yourself accountable to them, you know, if I did this, and this, and these are 3 things that I think about all the time, that they're always on my mind, that I did these things. To me, the simplest thing to do would be like, I'm going to stick them on my mirror so I see them every day. That way I don't run and hide from them. And then what can I do to overcome them? Like if I sat down and thought about it, like let's say that I stole. Okay. So how can I overcome that? I feel embarrassed about the fact that whether I was sober or if I was drunk, or how can I overcome the feeling I feel about stealing this or doing that? Okay, well, I could return it, or I could, you know, return it tenfold to that person or that company or what have you. And then how I reacted at a party when I was drinking, or what I did. I cheated on my spouse. I wasn't a good father for 3 years. Well, I mean, Sean, you said it yourself. Like you look back at it now and you're like, man, the relationship that I had with my kids during that period wasn't the best. How did they look at me? Have they even ever told me the truth about how they are? But now the fact that they're around more, well, it means you've done things right. You've made up for that. So if you looked at it as like, you know, I haven't been a good father, and let's face it, that's something that hits home regardless of how well you're doing in life. 3 years down the road of being sober and being a great dad and being there every single day, that feeling of like that 6-month period, that 2-month period, that 2-year period or whatever, where you weren't a great dad, like it hits you, like you're damn, I should have done better. But you can make up for that by being a better father down the road and saying like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to make sure I'm doing this. And that can help you overcome those demons. regardless if it comes from a sense of sobriety or if it comes from a person just being every day struggling with what they've done in the past, because we've all done things that we're not proud of. I think if you could look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm proud of the person I am now, then that makes those things go further away in the past.
For sure. I mean, that speaks volumes. And again, I'm not taking away from the importance or the severity of, I just not, and again, everybody that you say it to, well, I was drunk or high, that's not an excuse. You know, in my mind it is, because I'm the victim. Remember, I have the problem. That's you, it's not me, kind of thing. But that's where it all stems from, you know, finding that root cause. Again, that's what the process of the steps does, is it deals with whether it was childhood trauma, which I'm pretty sure many of us suffer from, the vast majority, or even learned behavior. You know, again, if dad comes home every day and has a glass of bourbon, and he's not an alcoholic, he never has more than one or whatever, but we know, or maybe on a rare occasion when he's had a really bad day, he'll have two or like one and a half. We learn that, hey, when you've had a bad day, you just have a glass of bourbon. Well, he doesn't have the allergy that I have, so he's able to do that and maintain that and not be an alcoholic. Where I have a physical allergic reaction going on in my body, so now I become an alcoholic through it. So, I mean, we need to look at that. But again, it's going back to that root problem of, well, why did you feel bad if you stole? You made a sober-minded, conscious decision to do it, but it's out of character normally. So what was going on in your mind that made you do it that time? You know, maybe you've thought about it but you've never actually done it. So again, now we want to get to that root problem. So is it a learned behavior or is it childhood trauma kind of thing? And that's where, you know, that's where you dig into it. Again, once I get past the physical portion of it, alcohol can never hurt me as long as I never take that first drink. I'm safe. But my mind is what's the real enemy, you know, those thoughts, letting Satan in there. So I got to deal with these traumas or this learned behavior. How do I unlearn it? How do I free myself of that? And that's where, again, going through those steps. I mean, I think the big book should be high school curriculum. Every single person that goes through it and does it can benefit from it. And again, whether you have almost every single person has an addiction to something, whether it be their cell phone, eating, porn, whatever. There is something that is your vice that you cannot overcome.
Sure.
And that helps you deal with that and balance out your life. And it's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I agree. When you can overcome those things, it's definitely strong.
For sure.
For those listening, please like, share, comment. We appreciate some of you guys that have shared and commented earlier. It just adds to the show rather than three guys just talking to themselves. If you're interested in being a guest, please reach out to us, support@guysnight.com. I'm actually going to have a new email address for that too coming up. So we'll make sure that we get that out there. But if there's anything that's on your mind this evening and you're taking a listen, please don't hesitate to comment. And for those listening, please make sure that you at least hit the like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever platform that you're listening on, whatever your vice is this evening. Please don't hesitate to do so. All right. So with that being said, anything else that you guys want to touch on this evening before we wrap the show up?
Not really off the top of my head. I love listening to you, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
You have a way to describe what I'm thinking, and it kind of goes back to, not really goes back to that, but we were talking about before we got started here. You know, I was just like, I'm so grateful that I don't have this need or this feeling or this desire to have a drink. And someone that's sober, like you've mentioned many times, it's like, why can't you just stop? I'm going to go work out. I'm going to do this and that.
Yeah,
I did all that. I love working out. I go do all that stuff, but
Right.
and it all comes back down that these steps help me deal with my problems. I never heard that before. You were sober. I was sober when I stole stuff from the mall when I was 16 years old. I can't think of why, other than the fact, looking back, I wanted it. I couldn't afford it.
Right.
I
Seems
don't
like
think there was anything underlying that I got a bad grade that day or if I sat down and thought about it long enough, I may be able to dig something out. But that's how the steps help me deal with life problems.
I think we can, if we get that 4-column inventory going,
Right.
Again, it's, like peer pressure. Okay, well, why did you cave to your peers? Why did you need to impress them? What
Right.
do you feel about yourself? You're inadequate. I mean, once you start really digging and getting to the root and get through the surface, the BS layer, and then you start getting to the meat and potatoes of it, you really start learning a lot about yourself.
Right.
And it's like, maybe mom and dad's, if your parents are racist, that's a learned behavior. You're not necessarily traumatized by anybody of another race, but you just have an opinion about them because that's what you grew up listening to. So now you've come into the situation where, here comes somebody that's a different race that you want to be friends with, or you might even want to marry. And it's like, that's not going to be acceptable in my family. That's not, how could this happen to me? Again, it's all about learn. It's that cognitive understanding, but it's when you're young, again, especially us. I mean, your kids are sponges, man.
Mhm.
They hear more, they know more, they understand more than you ever give them credit for, and they're so impressionable at that age. And again, they're just taking everything in. And again, are they like automatically immediately going to be like a heroin addict or somebody that goes out and steals constantly?
Sure.
No. But again, it's every negative thing that happens in their life and builds up. And if you got a kid that doesn't really have self-confidence and kind of, stays back from the crowd and stuff, and is kind of a loner, you know, y- the more you pile on there, I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Eventually, it's going to, I'm going to be so hurt and damaged that I'm either going to unalive myself or I'm just going to numb the pain the best way I can. And again, whether it be looking at stuff on the internet, eating, drinking, whatever, that addictive behavior, it 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 helps you. It makes you feel better in the sense that I've numbed the pain. Well, so when the sensation of the cake's gone or the alcohol wears off or you close the laptop and you're no longer looking at pornography, what now?
Yeah.
You feel better for a few minutes and then you start feeling, then again, that meeting goes bad. No, now, it's every time I start to feel good, I get kicked in the teeth, something bad happened.
Mhm.
And negative thoughts will definitely produce negative results. You have to shock your system and get out of that normal, as unhealthy as it is, it's a normal behavior and thought process. Just like working out for you guys. When you start off, it's a discipline. Again, here I am. I'm at the gym. I'm picking up this heavy weight and I'm putting it back down. I'm picking it up to put it right back down. Like it's to me, it's like, what am I doing? But when you go and you force yourself and you're disciplined, and then you start seeing the results. Now it's like before it was, I needed a pep talk. You got to have a workout buddy, accountability to go to the gym with and, to cheer you on and everything. Now it's, man, I got to get to the gym. Like you feel bad and horrible when you miss it.
Sure.
So that's a learned behavior. That's a healthy one to a point. I mean, some guys go over the top, but it's like, that's what you have to do. You have to have that discipline and you have to relearn how to be healthy because you've never seen, you come from a broken, there's all kinds of examples of not unhealthy things. We can all agree on that,
Right.
right?
Sure.
So it's changing that thought process of what is healthy. Okay, here's the root problem. How do I solve that? We'll go through the steps.
Mm.
But once you relearn and learn a healthy way to be, you don't ever want to go back to that.
100% agree on a lot of that. Well, I 96% agree.
All right, what's the 4%?
That segment
We'll
of the
work on that
show.
next week.
That segment of the show is called Ray's Rants. If you enjoy Ray's Rants, make sure that you like, subscribe.
Who doesn't want a little R&R?
Right?
Um,
Just passionate.
I got
that's
two
all.
things that I want to end the show on. So one, for me, it's difficult to say like everything that I've done wrong is because of something else, like something caused that, whether it's something deeper, whether it's my parents or my childhood or all these different things. Like I think I take ownership in the fact that a lot of things that I've done wrong in my life are because I wanted to do them, and I just hope that I didn't get caught, right? And then if I did get caught, like shit, how do I fix this? Whether it's with the courts or whether it's with a relationship or all the different things that it could be. Try not to say whatever the case. My wife gets on me for that all the time. Just as I say whatever the case way too much on the podcast. That and fuck. I don't think I've said fuck up until now. So, ha, babe. The other thing I had a question about is though, and this is something that I won't say that I've looked down upon sober people or those who are in, but I've always thought to myself, like, it appears that you've traded, and I guess it could be a healthy one, but is the book, is the steps, is the talking about is that a habit that you're just replacing the other habit with? Because
that is a great question and observation. It definitely can be. And I think for a lot of us, especially at the beginning, it's 90 days,
Right.
90 meetings. You want a meeting a day minimum. I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, I probably hit about 200 meetings in my 90 days, because there were days where I just went 3, 4, 5 times a day, because it was like, I feel better, but I still want to drink, So, but I used to work with a guy, and long time heavy drinker and stuff, and he's had many years of sobriety, and it was, he ended up getting a divorce after a long sobriety portion of his life, and that's the reason behind it was, when you were out drinking, you were always at the bar or at some, you were always gone, you were never home. And now that you're sober and I actually want you around, you're always at a meeting or helping somebody else, you're never around. And we have to be very careful of, this is why the steps are so important. You can't just go to meetings and hang out and think life's going to be grand, because it's not. You might be able to abstain from alcohol for a while, but again, you're not dealing with that root problem. All you're doing is feeding that addiction through going to the meetings. And it kills me that, because I've always been the loud one, I'm always talkative or whatever, but it's like AA is where you always talk about yourself and your problem and what you've done and this and that. And then there's so many people like Sean, I love him to death, but he's like very quiet and reserved. And it's like, I worry about that.
Sure.
I don't with him, because I know him. But when I first see somebody like that, like, that's a concern to me, is why are you so clammed, at the beginning? Totally understand that,
Right,
you're
right.
fragile. You come up and
well,
say
you're
hi to
new,
me.
you're putting yourself out,
Right,
people,
right.
like that.
But once you've had a couple years and stuff, it's like, you should really be more active. You should be, bringing some stuff to the table here, not just if you're sitting there, I pass at every meeting. Your sponsor needs to be getting on you, or like something needs to happen, because if you're not contributing, you're not really, you're physically there, but you're not there.
No,
Like, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, no, I love commenting on meetings. I mean, especially if it's something that's bothering me, I'd love to get it out and not hold it in and let it pile up on me.
Right. That's how you get released from it.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, hey, great show this evening. Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate all the people that listened, the comments, the questions. It's all very helpful to us. Hopefully, we can all grow together. Once again, if you'd like to be part of the show, regardless of what your story is or what you're going through in life, we're here to bring it to attention and get that story out there. So, as I said, you can share it anonymously on the website, guysnight.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can reach out to support@guysnight.com and through email, or you can just reach out to any of us personally. You can reach out through the DMs of my Guys Night channels. But we'd love to have you on. Love to talk about other things as well. Like I said, this channel is not just about sobriety and fighting those demons, but, you know, relationships, business, struggles that you go through on a daily basis. As men, this is an opportunity in a forum for you to communicate it, to share it, to talk about it. And those that are listening, this is a chance for you guys to throw in your wisdom as well. If you hear something on the show that you've got 2 cents on, we'd love to hear it. We'd like to invite as many men as possible to be part of these, even if they're not sitting at the table directly here physically. So please, once again, make sure that you guys are commenting, liking, sharing the stories, and getting it out there. And we look forward to engaging with more of you guys down the road. So with that, I wish you all a good night, everybody.
Take it easy.
Have a good night. Thanks.